Hi, everybody. Frank Gladstone here from Asifa-Hollywood with another webinar. You may have heard of these three characters at some point or another in the last few years. They're responsible for Wizard's Tale of Arcadia, all the Tales of Arcadia shows from the very beginning, back in 2016, I think it was, 2016. So I'm going to go around the list here. We're going to start with Marc. Besides being a lawyer, I understand.
You don't hold that against me.
Yeah, I know. And wrote for some legal shows like The Practice and Law and Order, things like that. And as well as done a lot of work for Marvel, comic books, as well as movie scenarios and so forth. And also started in Long Island, but he lives here now.
Yeah, yeah. 20 years.
There you go. And then I'm going to go to Chad. Chad is a producer of some repute. And not ill repute, good repute. He has a motorcycle behind him, which I want. Doesn't actually run, but I want it. And he's done a lot of series, including the Dragon series for DreamWorks, which might come up in a little bit, as well as there you go. And has built studios not only in the U.S. but in Germany, India, China. And has worked on franchises such as Starship Troopers, Puss in Boots, Madagascar, and Train Your Dragon. And then the other guy, he's the new guy in town. He's just starting. He's an intern. Studied in Guadalajara and learned makeup technique by a guy I know named Dick Smith.
Dick Smith. I'm also a lawyer.
You are? He's a lawyer.
And a dentist.
Some of my Spanish, it's obrigado, is that right?
I'm a dentist.
Oh, you're a dentist. All right. And a lawyer and a dentist. Guillermo del Toro started directing in the late 80s in Mexico, and then did some movies, Kronos, Devil's Backbone, Blade 2, Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, which is one of the most famous ones, as well as
a bunch of others.
The Shape of Water, which I loved, by the way. I had a question about that, Guillermo, before we get to Troll Hunters, before we get to Tales of Arcadia. Creature of the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
Which was filmed in my neighborhood, actually, Florida. The scene when the creature is chasing Julie Adams.
Underwater.
Did that have a lot to do with?
Oh, yeah, no, everything. Look, I had my first female and monster crush when I was very young. Frankenstein's creature, but the creature from the Black Lagoon and that scene with Julie Adams basically marked my life. And then I felt like Marilyn Monroe felt in The 7-Year Itch. And they're coming out of the theater and she says, the poor creature just wanted to be understood, and to be loved. And I thought, I'm going to rectify that. And in the movie, actually, there are very punctual quotes, visual. The creature coming out of the water, you can find it, these quotes you can find on Creature, Revenge of the Creature, in which he's in a lab, blah, blah. His foot stepping out of the bathtub, him swimming under her. Right. At the end, Sally is floating down and the creature is swimming under her. This is a love letter to classic cinema, but a love letter to that monster, to that creature.
We like the monster.
I do.
Yeah. Rico Browning, who played him in the water part, nearly drowned a couple of times, apparently, because the scene
That's absolutely right. Yeah, two people, and there were 2 suits and 2 performers. Right. You can see it because the chest scales had to be adjusted because there's no other way to adjust the suit, right. And they adjusted it here. And I think it's Millicent Patrick designed the suit. And I think she did also the Metaluna robot and the creature from It Came Out from Outer Space. She was one of the greatest designers. She was unfortunately occluded and hidden, because there was a lot of envy against her, but she was also very linked to what we do, which is animation. Right. She worked at Walt Disney Studios, and I think she was one of the few other than Mary Blair and people that were in design and other departments, she was actually very active. And I always think, what would have happened if we had given her, if the world had given her a real chance, like we gave it to so many, Frank Thomas, Bill Titla, all the 9 old men, and you know, what would have happened? Why didn't it happen? We know the answer, sadly, but what a waste.
Maybe now we're starting to rectify, or hopefully starting to rectify that situation. People are recognized for their talent rather than for their luck.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and start asking some questions. Troll Hunters, Troll Hunters, and all the ARCADIA stories have so far received 18 Annie nominations, won 5, and 2 of those in animation, 1 in storyboarding, character design, and animated effects so far. We have 1 more series to go, the Wizard series, which is starting. Oh, well, it's just starting. I've seen 2 episodes of it, so I'll have some questions about that. But just generally in the whole picture of things, and this is addressed to all of you, how did this develop? Did it develop as just the Troll Hunter story and then it grew? Or was it always going to be considered a trilogy?
Well, it's a very long circle, because I pitched it first as a TV series at Fox. And I pitched it, I pitched it more like 13, 14 years ago, more 15. And I pitched it as to what Stranger Things would have been, you know? I said it would be set in the 80s, it would be kids, sort of an ambling series, but the kids would have real lives at school, and at night they have to hunt for trolls. And then I went to DreamWorks about a little more than 10 years ago, I believe, you know, and I pitched it to Bill and Jeffrey, and Jeffrey said, "No, we don't do TV."
Yeah, I remember.
We only do features. And you try it as a feature. And then we started a long process, 3 or more years with Tom Wheeler, other writers, and then Mark came in, and I had the first 30, 40 pages, something like that, and an outline for the
60. Yeah, yeah.
And so I said, look, this happens all the time. I start writing an outline and I end up writing 40, 50 pages, 70 pages, whatever, but I need a partner. So with Mark, he came in, we developed, but we kept saying, this is too much mythology.
Yes.
Can't crack it in 2 hours. And then, you know, one morning, Jeffrey invited me to have breakfast, and he said, look, you're going to kill me, but can you make it into a series? And I said, I think I can. And I spoke with Mark and Chad, and we knew what we wanted was to unpack it. Now, here's the funny thing. We thought we were going to do 13 episodes, 1 season, right?
Yeah.
And Jeffrey says, no. I already pitched it to Netflix. We're going to do 2 seasons in a row, you know? And we were like, what? And then I went to Netflix and we started pitching how to unpack it into an experiment that no one has done. There's more news to come in the next couple of days. I cannot spoil it, but there's more. We tried a very, very crazy, brave experiment. We wanted for it to be ambitious, yes, but we wanted to do 3 series that interconnected, that the characters grew along the 3 series, and go into a grand finale, you know? And this
is the grand finale now. I mean, this season,
yeah,
is the grand finale.
Yes. In a mysterious way, I'll say, amongst other things. But that's all I'm gonna say. But I think I remember. You remember, guys, the first session where we were on episode 6, and we said, well, we're halfway there.
Yes.
and now we could. I mean, I think we could go. We could go on. It's just the universe.
So it started as you're going to do 13 episodes,
yeah,
and then you got greenlit for another 13 before the 13 were even done, right?
Yeah.
And then And then you did a third year for Troll Hunters, and then 2 years of 3D, right?
Well, what happened is Three Below. I went and I pitched this idea of interconnecting things, and at Netflix they said, how would they interconnect? And we went and pitched how each series, like we said, in order for this to work, we gotta tease the character from the second series on the second season, you know, and tease the characters from the third series on the second and third season and so forth. So we ended up, I mean, we have how many episodes?
88
episodes
Yeah.
from something that we thought we were doing just one season of. But if you watch the series again, the characters on the second series are there in the first one. The characters of the third one are there in the second one. And it's all very cogent.
Now, when you started to develop this, Mark, when you started developing, you knew you're going to do 2 and 3 and so forth, was the idea, because to me it's like the Arcadia, and then it's the aliens, and now it's Camelot. Was that in the plan, or was that, because Guillermo just said there was a lot of mythology here. We're not going to crack it in 2 hours, you know. So was that kind of the idea, that it would be these?
Yeah, I mean, from Guillermo's original pitch, you know, he was very clear about, you know, Three Below, aliens, you know, comedy, fish out of water, wizards, you know, really being about the relationship between Duxie and Merlin. You know, Merlin, who we've been hearing about ever since the first episode of Troll Hunters. So, you know, Guillermo's absolutely right that the interconnectivity of the various shows, it's incredibly tight. In fact, we have an episode in Troll Hunters that really introduces Aja and Krell, the 2 leads from Three Below, and then we revisit in the body of Three Below that exact same episode, but now from Aja and Krell's perspective.
Yes.
So you really can go back and rewatch all 3 shows and see all the different ways they talk to each other.
Well, I suspect that that's going to be how a lot of people are going to do this.
I hope so.
I just finished watching The Sopranos, you know, and I, you know, what you've got here is this interconnected world.
Yes.
Along those kind of same, I mean, it's not mafia guys shooting each other up, but
no, that is behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So,
You know, I have to say, I can remember when we were thinking we were making 13 episodes, and we blinked our eye, and all of a sudden we were making 52 episodes of Troll Hunters.
Yeah.
And at that time, I remember Guillermo was already fully invested. There were obviously conversations he and Jeffrey had. And I can remember him sitting in a room with us in production office, and we were trying to figure out designing the characters. And, you know, I knew the expectations were huge. The world was huge, and the bar was very high. And, you know, as I'm sitting there trying to swallow this pill, really stressing out, he's like, but no, Chad, this is also about aliens and wizards. Like, oh my God, you know. So
the questions are coming in, and I don't want to monopolize this. So I'm going to ask questions. I don't know what they are. They're just coming in. And the first one is from Bob Miller. How has CG technology improved from the beginning of Troll Hunters to now, to Wizards? How has this benefited production?
I'm gonna give Chad the chance to run with that, but I can say this: what we also tried to do, because I believe there are 2 things I believe. Animation is not a genre, it's a medium, and the more we push it towards maturity, consciously, where we say we're not making things for kids, it's circumstantial. We can grow this into an adult medium that tells adult stories, you know. And unlimited, actually as unlimited as your imagination, or your budget. This is where we join with Chad, but it's not the technology, yes, because now we get faster, better solutions for things that used to be very expensive, very time consuming, blah, blah, blah. But we said from the beginning, we took certain decisions aesthetically that we said, we're gonna constrain ourselves a little, but we want it to look and be lit as almost as a feature film. We want that beauty. We want the rigs to be really good. No simulations, but this and that. So Chad, why don't you run with this one?
Well, I mean, I think it's there's a lot of different angles from it of how we got to where we did, and why the animation and the technology and the effects and just the overall production quality of the show has just, you know, really, really increased. I mean, most is because of the pressure of Guillermo. He's always, you know, wants our expectations much higher than our budget. And we're very, that's sort of our mantra. So, you know, but you have animators, you know, rigs get better, software gets better. That stuff is okay. You know, that all that stuff works and improves your show. But I think really what we were doing was we had the advantage of using a lot of the same people, a lot of the same artists, from the design end, storyboard end, all the way through animation and lighting, with the idea that we were trying to make this TV show look like a feature. And so naturally people, as you start spending that much time with characters start becoming more and more alive. The writers, Mark and team and Guillermo, you just, not only the animators get better, the writers get better, and you just start creating a lot more emotional arcs. But I also think that, you know, our secret sauce isn't technology. Our secret sauce is the way that we actually go from writing a script to bringing it into an animatic and being able to lock that to an emotional state where you could watch the animatic and break down and cry right in the editorial room before you've ever even started animating or doing any layout. And that's a secret sauce that we have. And it was necessary to make it because it's really takes a long time, as you all know, to make animation. And at the high level that we've always been doing at the time, we've always been pushing the limits. So to try and keep servicing episode after episode, we had to have a different approach in order to be, you know, to really tell something narratively. And as Guillermo says, have true empathy for these characters and really be invested in them and wanting to just keep watching one after another to know what happened to those characters.
There is, Frank, another important part of the secret sauce recipe is we run, first of all, some creators, that have other careers like live action, just give their name and run away. You know, I've been involved from meeting one until last night. Mm-hmm. Every crucial step of design, every crucial step of story, every cut of every animatic, I comment, not once or twice, because Chad makes sure it's done.
He spends hours cutting the animatic.
You know, we go and really care for this. I am as proud of what we have done, and I call the team we, as I would be of any of my movies. And I've been as invested and as crazy for it. And very important, this is very important, we run a ship that is both impermeable to notes, but permeable to creativity. I shelter the creators as much as possible from the usual barrage of notes, and I make the studios participate as creators. We say, look, our duty is to the story. And if the note doesn't go with the story, we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna try it. And that's our partnership. If we have that horizontality, if you approach the notes not from the top down, but from a real equal to equal working relationship with the directors, the producers, the designers, then we can have a dialogue, but it's a dialogue. I don't think, and we are going into a decade, and I don't think we have had a single mandate. And that makes a difference because the animators, the designers, the producers, we all do our best because we know part of what we're doing is gonna make it intact, you know? And I think it involves the studios at a more on the floor level with us. We are all creators. We are all discussing story or discussing character, the merits of it. Nothing comes from marketing or from audience polls or things like that. It comes from story.
Did you have a problem getting the studio to acquiesce to that format?
No.
Or was it okay?
No, I think it's good because my first relationship was with Jeffrey on features.
Mine too, actually.
Yeah, so when I was with Jeffrey, I was working on features, coming in, consulting or producing and guiding it. And I had a very, you know, Jeffrey runs a ship that is inhumanly tight. You know, first meeting for breakfast is 6 a.m. But I really learned a lot to calibrate with an audience. I learned a lot to read an audience, blah, blah, blah. And by the time we came to TV, that relationship was great. And Margie, who has been head of TV, was completely on board in the same spirit of that team. So, you know, we basically been growing together for a decade. So it was not never an antagonistic relationship. It was
So,
always
Mark, you've written for more than Guillermo. You've written a lot of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find it different working in this particular?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, completely different. You know, the process that Guillermo's describing it's very, very accurate, and it really does benefit the end product, because when you're getting a lot of notes from a studio or a network, and they're not coming from the creative place that Guillermo's talking about, it's human nature to start trying to address the notes rather than what the notes are supposed to do, which is make the project better. You know, and what's great about this process that we have on Troll Hunters and the whole Tales of Arcadia trilogy is that it's all about best idea wins and what elevates and improves the story and the series and the trilogy. And that is so rare. It's, you know, I've worked on a bunch of different things, and it's the only time I've had that pure a creative experience.
So now we have a pure creative experience. We have scripts and screenplays that are done with that. And then they ask you, Chad, to make it visual. And you're going to have two giant space ships attack each other like in the Seahawk, and in a maelstrom of stuff, which is in the first episode, which I loved. Is there references, because I know you guys are all film fans and everything like that. Do you say, let's do something like the Seahawk, or let's do something like, you know, Close Encounters, or does that come up in your conversations?
I think it does across the board. As Guillermo said, it's really collaborative, and different people insert stuff at different times. And, you know, some stuff gets inserted and we see it the next day and, oh, wow, look at that. Sometimes it doesn't work out so well, but, you know.
But I think the beauty of this is who gives the reference sometimes can be a designer, can be an art director, can be a studio executive, can be Chad, can be whoever can say, why did we try this? It's a really beautiful ship run there. And look, mind you, in animation, you go to festivals with the studio, you have dinners with the studio. It's different than live action. There's a bigger separation. And these ideas that you're mentioning, what we knew, oftentimes we would say, for example, and this has been there from day one, we would say and identify. We would say, let's use a green light like in Excalibur to light all the armors. Right. Because John Borman found that great idea that if you light a silvery suit or a golden suit with a green light, it makes it look almost unreal. And from day one, Jim has had a green light illuminate his armor. Yeah. And we can quote these things, but we quote it very openly, very quickly, and it comes at any stage of the process.
I'm going to ask a question from Miranda Parkin. It says, hi there. I adore all of your work, a truly beautiful and inspiring show. This goes for all of you. And here's the question. What is the most challenging part about working on the show? What has been or is? Chad,
you start.
I can easily answer that. As I said, with a mantra like, you know, the ambitions have to far exceed your budget. You know, working with Guillermo is, you want to make sure that every episode is great. And the pressure of, for instance, just to get 52 episodes done of Troll Hunters, that was a huge feat to build that world and to be able to make them all very compelling. But, you know, then when you realize, oh my gosh, we're going to do 26 episodes of Three Below, and then we're going to do another 10 episodes of Wizards, you know, there's spoonfuls of like, everyone has to be great. Everyone has to be great. And I think that's probably the most difficult part of the job, is to make sure that we're living up to our audience and ourselves and being true to ourselves, what we want to make.
Mark?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that the one thing I would just add is, you know, I think this is true for myself, but also true for everyone that works on the shows, is we don't want to let Guillermo down. And it's not because we're worried, oh my God, Guillermo's going to lose his temper. Guillermo doesn't lose his temper. It's Guillermo has his passion and his creativity are infectious, and we're all kind of infected by this, by this condition. And
don't say that in this troubled time.
I mean, you can take penicillin and take care of it. But we really just we don't want to disappoint him. And yet the only reason I don't want to put it in those terms is it makes it sound like it's not the collaborative partnership that it is that Guillermo has built and has encouraged. But fundamentally, we just we don't we want to live up to the challenge he's setting out for all of us.
And I think that's true with a lot of the scripts that are written. The scripts when they originally come out are super ambitious. I cry when I read them. And I figure out how we're going to do it. And we go back and forth with the writing team and Guillermo. But the key is sort of piggybacking off what Mark said is that I know I can always go to Guillermo. I can horse trade. I'll do this for this episode if you give me this, or he'll just say, I understand there's limitations and we need to do the best we can with it. But you don't want to have to go to him and ask those things. You just want to wow him and try and give everything that we try and get. And trying to put as much of the budget on the screen is so important. And with all those variables, that's kind of what we get. But as Mark said, a lot of it is just like you don't want to disappoint that guy.
Right.
But I think the challenge for us and in this series, I really tried to use the we because it's such a great team. And we had two mandates from day one. One was we will start the series as a Joseph Campbell paradigm, but then we will deconstruct it. We will really take these characters to places that they are not normally taken. The bad guy will become a hero. The hero will become a bad guy. The hero will make horrible mistakes and do things that are irreparable or irreversible. And the bad guy will probably grow. You will grow to love him. That's number one. So from the paradigmic hero of 1,000 faces, we went, okay, that, let me show you this other stuff. The second one, which I think Margie and Jeffrey back then, and now Margie all the way, and Ted Sarandos and everybody at Netflix was always on board, is we tried a very good experiment. What we had learned from binge watching, we tried to apply to this series. Right. We knew how to open, we knew how to close. That's not hard. You always, you learn it from the serials in silent cinema. But what is great is this. The secret to binge watching is creating characters that you want to live with. Exactly. That you want to share your entire day with. You were watching The Sopranos. I know Tony Soprano better than some of my cousins. I know his weaknesses, his foibles, his virtues, and we said, and this is a big battle. I'm going back in the time machine. One of the big battles early on was somebody said, but Jim, what is his problem? And I said, I don't want any problems. Jim is a good kid. That is an abstraction. Normally you have all this crap learned in screenplay books. The hero has an arc where he starts here and has to vanquish it. This is a good kid. I want this series to be a milk and cookies on the sofa on a Sunday, the whole family piled on top of each other, eating cookies and drinking milk because they like those guys. Because what I learned about storytelling, I love from John Stanley and Little Lulu, which is some of the most beautifully written comic books of our childhood ever, from Johnny Quest, from things that I watched on Sunday mornings. And I tell you, the hardest thing is, and I'm very proud of this was true on episode 1, this was true on episode 88. And that was the thing that we always, in the cut, we kept reminding each other, but remember this, it's about character, blah, blah, blah.
The fact that you've got characters like Jim, who has, his arc is actually, I'm a good guy and I'm going to try and cope with all this. But then you've got Morgana, who I noticed.
Yes.
I mean, in the first iteration, she's really pretty awful. And there's something about, and I don't know if she's just playing with Claire or she's, because I don't know what's going to happen, but there's something, yeah, that's good. But there's a change going on here that I was really surprised about.
I think the salient example for me is a Strickler.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a character, and the other thing is we all, Mark, Chad, myself, we have all run series. Some of us in TV, live action, all animation, and you learn. The characters start talking to you. On the second season, the guy that you were meant to bump,
Yeah,
is now a character you love. You know, so we allowed ourselves to learn and listen.
I have another question here. It's from Ted B. We saw Guillermo's illustrated journals at the LACMA exhibit in LA. He's an amazing artist. How involved were you, Guillermo, and you guys chip in and deal with this guy? We deal with Guillermo, just, you know. How involved were you in the character designs and visual development for Troll Hunters and Three Below and Wizards?
Well, creatively, look, we run a very open ship. The only exception is a very cruel one. I say, at the end of the day, I'm right.
You guys experience that?
Yeah, you have to say, you have to convince me.
Yeah. Well, one of the things Guillermo, does, it's fun to watch him do this. It's very educational. I always describe Guillermo as he's a one-man film school. And seriously, I don't walk out of a single meeting without learning something. But one of my favorite things about working on the shows was the design meetings. And basically everything gets put up on a flat screen, but then hard copies of all the designs are printed out. And Guillermo will go and he will draw the adjustments. It's not just talking about it. He's got the artistic ability to execute on it. And watching those changes and what they do is really, really fascinating.
Another question's coming in. It says from Bob Miller, originally the troll voiced by Mark Hamill was killed. What changed your mind and brought him back again?
Well, you have to see the storyline to make sense of it. I mean, obviously everybody knows this goes back to the past.
Right.
So, people that have died come back because we're now in the Middle Ages. Not even the Middle Ages, we're in fantasy time.
Yeah.
I remember one of the greatest children's movie of all times is Time Bandits. And they go to Napoleonic times, they go to Tunisia, and they go to storybook time. Right. We exist in storybook time. So people that we have killed come back.
I always thought that was a good thing. I have a question here about the animation. One of the hallmarks of this show is the animation has always been spectacularly good. It's always seemed to push the envelope. That also in the DreamWorks Dragons shows as well. And the credits mention that I know that the pre-production is here and the design is here and the script writing is here and casting and voice recording, but the animation is done overseas. And I wanted to get some insight on that.
Chad?
I'll have to kill you to tell you. No.
You don't have to tell me any secrets.
Here's the thing, every studio, every team has their people they go to. And I was very fortunate to build studios in the UK and in Germany and in India and in China. And I spent a lot of time living in those places, years. And so, you get to know people, relationships, and you understand cultures. And you can't always animate shows in the US, and you can't always animate shows in Canada, and certainly not at the level of what we're doing. It's cost prohibitive. So you have to figure out a better solution of how to build a team that is really intimate to what Guillermo wants, understands the visual languages, as well as, sort of the nuances that Mark and team write. And, I was fortunate on the Dragons series to make 118 episodes. And through those relationships, we refined our vendors. We still have the same vendors that I've been using since Dragons. It's just those companies have changed, the ownerships have changed, but in some cases, but the general talent is still all around in those regions, and they're all on these shows and have been trained. And I have to sort of give a call out to Raman Hui, who has moved on. He was a great animator at DreamWorks, and he was in the early stages of sort of setting up TV and how we deal with these vendors who basically Guillermo inherited from the Dragons team that were already, learning a lot the way that DreamWorks animates. They had a very, very special curriculum in China, in Taiwan, and also in the US. And we brought a lot of people back and forth, and that's credit to Jeffrey. And so all these people that we trained are still in those countries, and they're still around, and they're on our shows.
Now, the thing, Frank, we have many people that would be key to be here: Francisco Ruiz Velasco, Rodrigo Blas, Alfonso Blas, Joan Mate, many people that are key to this show. But Rodrigo was part of the chorus of the chorus with Francisco too and so forth. But we traveled, we went to France to calculate and study what was available there. We worked for one of the seasons in Canada. And as the results started coming, we saw who was nimble, and Chad was very, very apt at identifying the best way to optimize those resources, because we're working with TV budgets, but we don't want it to look like TV animation. So we ended up with a couple of great partnerships that have withstood the ambitions of Mark and the story team. I do get phone calls from Chad saying, you gotta talk to Mark, they're crazy.
I remember I think it was the fourth episode of Wizards that was where it got really dicey.
Yes.
But the other thing that we did, often repeated, and Rodrigo Blas was a messenger of this. One of the things that you notice from episode 1 to episode 88, we always advocated for mistakes. Animate mistakes. Let the characters have failed actions. Because the thing that is most telling about animation, TV animation, is everybody does what they are meant to do because you're paying frame by frame for that time. And this was all the way up to Margie. We had this partnership saying, we're gonna animate mistakes. Somebody will try to get dressed and fail to get the shirt in one try. Somebody will have to close the door twice. And these things, and the cinematic stuff that we did helps a lot.
Yeah, it gives the characters life. It gives them something other than, yeah, you went and closed the door. No, he does what we all do: close the door and it didn't close, and close it again. And
we animate a lot of characters talking. We animate very rarely characters listening. And it's important to animate characters that listen.
Yeah. Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston would be proud of that.
Yes.
I have another question. This is from, let me get, Daniela Urista. She says, after the pandemic, is there any other projects in live action that any of you will be working on that you're allowed to talk about?
Well, I'm trying to finish Nightmare Alley. We have a great cast: Bradley Cooper, Toni Collette, William Dafoe, Cate Blanchett, Rooney Mara, Ron Perlman. It's a big cast. Now, because we have to restart now, that great thing means we have to coordinate the timetables of Rooney Mara, William Dafoe, Cate Blanchett, blah, blah, blah. But we hope we will restart soon enough. We are still going ahead with Pinocchio, which is a stop motion. We have been able to continue even on the pandemic, designing, cutting the animatic, and so forth, and it's looking spectacular. And that's another case in which we're pushing. This Pinocchio is not a Pinocchio that circumscribes itself to the fairy tale and to an audience. It's a much more ample story.
And it's a stop motion film? Because I didn't know about that one.
Stop motion, yes. And stop motion hardcore. The team there fights me because I say, well, we can do that fire effect, the digital disconcertation. They say, no. We're going to solve the fire effect with stop motion. The little dot that falls through the frame, we're going to do it live. Meaning with 3D objects. And even in the things that I would find maddening, they fight. They say, no, we're going to do it. We're going to animate that element.
Excellent. That's great. I have one more. I know it's we're going over time. I want to get one last question in before we close off. And this is from Molly Cummings. And it says for Guillermo, but I'm going to ask for all of you. And I think I know what Mark's turning point was. He decided not to be a lawyer. But for all of you, what was a turning point in your careers that you felt you really were on the right path and moving in the direction that brought you to where you are now? It's a hell of a question to end with, huh?
That's a good heavy question.
When was it that you thought, okay, this is what I meant to do and I'm on the right way to get there?
Well,
kind of like some of the characters in the trilogy.
Well, I'll tell you, I quit my job as a lawyer, and I grew up in New York, and I was on the tarmac at JFK. I had a one-way ticket to Los Angeles. The person sitting next to me was the plane is idling, was asking me what I was doing, and I explained I quit my job, the whole story. And he's like, "Wow, that is incredibly risky. How do you feel?" And I realized in that moment that I should be incredibly nervous. I should be more nervous than I've ever been. And I had this sense of calm that it came over me. And I just felt like I was doing the right thing, which I have to tell you was a very atypical, uncharacteristic feeling on my part. And that was when I knew.
Chad, your turn.
Well, I made movies with my mom's Bolex 8 Super 8mm camera. So when I was 10, I made a series of movies, and so I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. But my parents wanted me to be an engineer. So computer science seemed like the right thing to do, and how I could sort of come across back into making films without my parents really realizing it. So and I think that probably when I was working for a studio and I realized I was managing over $200 million worth of production, that I realized, like, okay, this is right.
That's excellent. Bolex had a stop frame button too. It was really good.
Yeah. In fact,
it's your turn.
Yeah, I started doing little animations with my Planet of the Apes figures. I was about 8 or 9, and I started doing stop motion, and I continued doing stop motion in my 20s and early 30s. But, I think because I always thought, well, animation is something you can do with a lot less apparatus. And the ideas I had were very weird and very complex for Mexican cinema, technically here and there. But, I think that if you are in the right path, you have many a night in which you doubt. I don't think that certainty is a virtue. I think certainty is a horrible thing to have. I think uncertainty is what I really feel keeps us interested in what we do. So I think it's far more interesting to know when was the last time you felt uncertain. I can tell you that's very recent. because I think that I was talking to Bradley yesterday, and I said, when I need an actor, I don't want to hear how right they are for the part. I want to hear them say why they are wrong for the part and why they don't want to do it. That makes me much more interested in working together. And I think that's the key thing of an artist is not certainty. That's for politicians, or priests or something far more elevated and opulent or something. I think artists, we should live in doubt.
That's a good way to finish this particular webinar. It's been really really great. It's been a really nice conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I hope that our people online have enjoyed it too. It's going to go up on YouTube in a little while.
Let's say farewell to all 10 of them.
There was a lot of them. We had more than we usually do. When this is all over and the pandemic is over, I want to have lunch with you guys.
Yeah, Frank, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Where did you buy your Ren and Stimpy little water figures?
I don't know where I got it. This is my old Hanna-Barbera desk, by the way. It was actually a friend of mine who was a director over there. Ren and Stimpy. I don't usually show this on the things. This is the velvet Popeye, Guillermo. It is from Mexico. It's Popeye painted on velvet. And if you gaze upon it, which you now have done, and everybody in this webinar has done, you will have good luck for the next exactly 24 hours. Anything you do will be
time for skydiving.
With that, I'm gonna end, and I thank you all very much, and thank you all in the audience, and Guillermo and Chad and Mark. Thank you all.
Thank you very
See
much.
you later, man.
Take it easy. Bye bye.